Okay, so let's see, a few announcements to make before we delve into the book of Daniel. Because you realize we are already halfway through the book. Wow, it goes fast. But it's going to get slower because there's more things to unpack in the future chapters that we have yet to cover. We're going to begin chapter 7, which is actually the last chapter in the book of Daniel in the Aramaic. That's right. There's 12 chapters in the book of Daniel. Chapter 1 is in the Hebrew. Chapters 2 through 7 are in the Aramaic. Why is that good to know? Well, in case we want to get deeper understanding, we want to unpack the Hebrew or Aramaic words, which we do from time to time. And let's see, it was interesting talking about lions last time we met last week, but we're still going to talk about lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. No, actually, it's going to be lions and leopards and bears as we get into chapter 7 in the book of Daniel. And it's relevant for us. It tells us where we are in the prophetic timeline. Realize, folks, 2% of churches teach on prophecy, and pastors aren't equipped to teach on prophecy, many of them. Churches aren't comfortable talking about it. There's a disagreement that it should be covered, but we here at Sunrise Bible Church cover all 66 books of the Bible. I enjoy teaching the book of Revelation. I'm continuing in the book of Daniel. You have to read both to understand because there are so many parallels between them, and they expound on each other and sharpen each other. So what we have yet to uncover, not all today, is the little horn. Who is that little horn? What do we know about him, and what are we going to hear throughout the book? And realize his significance is for a short period of time, for 3.5 years. Welcome to the Great Tribulation, but we'll see him emerge in the first half of the tribulation. We also have in the book of Daniel the ram and goat comparison, which affected certain empires. What are those empires? Why is it in the book of Daniel? Why do we need to know that? We're going to talk about the 70 weeks of Daniel moving forward, when it began, what weeks have been completed, what is yet uncompleted, how does it affect us, and why do we need to know about the weeks of Daniel? That's in chapter 9, and there'll be many teachings in that chapter. And also, it's crucial to understand that final week of Daniel as it pertains to us as a body of believers, as to the church. Realize that there is a lot of debate, scholarly debate. Like when you talk about prophecy, you're going to get different eschatologists, different understandings and teachings on what certain passages mean. You'll never have two speakers that agree on everything 100% of the time. How many wish we could do that with our spouses or our children? Always be in agreement. But you follow the most scholarly people. They generally are in agreement on the majority of the passages, and that's who we follow, and we do our best to understand and unpack the passages in the book of Daniel. You will come across agnostics and atheists in your travels, and they're going to tell you, you know, that book of Daniel, it was historical. He talked about events that happened a long time ago, and it wasn't even accurate, and there's many mistakes in the book of Daniel, and you Christians and your faith and what you believe, and you're easily fooled, and you just want something comfortable to live in because you're not happy with the world in front of you. Well, let's talk about a famous person in the Bible who talked about Daniel, and he said Daniel was indeed a prophet. Oh, who said that? Jesus. That to me is a pretty credible source. He's a prophet, and he's actually part of the Jedi Force. Jedi Force? Why are you looking funny? Like, do I have Star Wars fans here? Let's see, acronym. We have how many major prophets in the Old Testament? 4. A Jedi acronym, J-E-D-I, J for Jeremiah, E for Ezekiel, D for Daniel, I for Isaiah. Easy way to remember that. There's also a way to remember the 12 minor prophets, but I won't take up space and time now for that. It's just interesting to look at these passages and these people. So not only do we have Scripture, which is divinely inspired by the Holy Spirit and God for our teaching and edification, we have Jesus calling Daniel as a prophet, and he spoke about him. So there's relevance here. And to show you an example, as we get smarter in our studies, we get more studied, more information, we go through the pages of Scripture to and fro. Here's an example I came across that debunked part of Daniel, because realize Daniel was there. He is an eyewitness to the events that happened. And it actually disagrees with some ancient historians we'll talk about that have a different view, a different take on it. But let's give an example where credit is due. For example, Daniel, who comes under attack, says Belshazzar was the last king of Babylon, while all the other ancient historians, including Herodotus, said it was Nabonidus. What? Of course, secular historians throughout history went with Herodotus and disregarded Daniel, believing that Daniel just made up Belshazzar out of thin air. That's true. That happened. However, in the 19th century, not that long ago, the Nabonidus cylinder, ancient Babylonian artifact, I showed you a picture of that in the previous teaching, that cylinder from Babylon. It was found showing that Belshazzar was in fact a real person who was Nabonidus' son ruling in Babylon while his father was off fighting wars far away. In fact, it said that Nabonidus made Belshazzar his co-regent. How could Daniel know this detail about Belshazzar that escaped Herodotus unless he was there? And in fact, he was. People from outside the Babylonian Empire and those looking back years later would say Nabonidus was the last ruler because technically he was the last ruler having authority even over Belshazzar. However, the person actually ruling in the last days in Babylonian was his son indeed, Belshazzar, which is evidence that the book of Daniel was written during that time and not so later as many scholars previously had believed. Remember, I did that one slide to understand chapter 5. You had to understand King Nebuchadnezzar II, his daughter Nicrotis. She married Nabonidus. They had a son, Belshazzar, who was a grandson to King Nebuchadnezzar. And when you understand the family dynamics, the family tree, the chapter made sense. I also have a slide I worked on, created to make an understanding of the entire chapter 7 for you. It makes it easier for me because I'm a visual person. I like to kind of know when they're talking about animals and beasts that we're going to talk about today, what do they represent? What are they about? There's 4 beasts that Daniel chapter 7 talks about. How many people, as we are Christians in our walk and in our faith, and we come across new converts or people that question our faith, or they may be new in the Word, and they're going to come up to you and say, excuse me, I'm like right now in the book of Daniel, I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I don't understand. There's 4 beasts that are mentioned. Can you explain that to me, what they're about? I'm a little confused. How many of you here could raise your hand and say, I'll help you out. I'll explain what those are about. Oh, great. Everybody raised their hand here. We're going to go ahead and close early in prayer and call it a day because you obviously know. There's a lot to unpack here in these chapters, and we're going to go methodical. We're going to go slow, verse by verse, but sometimes we move slower, sometimes we move faster. It depends on the content. But before we get there, we have an event coming up our way, not just a prophecy conference in the next few weeks in the seats you're sitting in now. And that's a great way to meet people from all over that come to see these speakers. We have an event that Christians love to celebrate, and let's take a look at what that is that's coming down the pike. Okay, so why are Christians so involved with this holiday? Remember, I gave you 3 solid reasons last week, those that were here. The number 1 reason why Christians partake in this holiday is, number 1, it is fun. Okay, remember that. Note takers. Number 2 was, that's right, it's fun. Number 2 and number 1 are the same. And number 3, fun, fun, fun. My wife and I went to PetSmart yesterday for the kiddos, you know, got to take care of them. And there's a lot of Halloween costumes, of course, for the pets. And I saw the checkout lady, and it didn't surprise me, but I asked the question. I said, are you going to dress up your pet for Halloween? And she said, oh, absolutely. And I'm like, You know, they really don't like it. Dogs and cats, they really doth protest. They don't like this. They have some semblance of pride and dignity if you give them any of it, and we take that away from them, right? So, and I told her, I said, yeah, I feel sorry for them. And she says, I don't. And I said, how come? Because they're so cute. So, I mean, those are good reasons to be involved with Halloween. Fun, fun, fun. It's cute, right? That makes sense. Well, actually, on my social media platforms, I'm going to release again. It's available for you now to peruse. 3 teachings on Halloween. Maybe you have people that are divided in a family. Should a Christian be involved? Can we be around it in a different focus, a different way? Can we circumvent it and still be pleasing to God? Should we have any part of it? What does the Bible say about it? Well, it's in those teachings, and I'll be posting them again as a reminder because I do not want to take away from the teaching of Daniel. Remember, U.S. consumers are approximated to spend only $11.7 billion on Halloween this year. It's a money maker. And 35 million people will participate annually in this holiday with 55% of injuries. And yes, the hospitals thank you with your co-pays when you bring your kids in for medical care. It's not just the crazy drivers on the streets that can hit them, but what's 55% of the reasons why people get hurt on Halloween? Pumpkin carving. Okay, I do come across some slides. I open on a little lighthearted side. They're too good not to pass. So if you are having issues where you're currently employed, you don't feel valued as a member, as a team player, you're not given due what you're owed, you don't have enough of a salary, you deserve a raise, and you don't know how to bring that across to your boss, I got a solution here. You just tell your boss that there are 3 companies right now that are after you. 3. Of course, your boss is going to say, really? What are those companies? Well, here it is. I told my boss that 3 companies were after me and I needed a raise. He asked me what companies. I told him the electric company, the gas company, and the cable company. So that's good reasons. Those are 3 companies that are after all of us, aren't they? All right, let's take a look at this one. Yesterday, I wore something from 5 years ago, and it fits. So proud of myself. It was a pair of socks. But still, let's be on the positive side here, okay? And how about those Christmas gifts where you get a present, and I don't know about you, I didn't like clothes so much. I like games and electronics. And what's the worst thing that would happen is you get a game, and there was like no batteries. Am I the only one that ever happened to? It just ruins your day. Well, here, a brother, we always get each other ironic gifts, but my brother killed it this year. Batteries, but it says gift not included. Use it as you may. And what is currently the most expensive car? You may have seen it out there. The most expensive thing you've come across as far as you have to drive that you see out there, and you think about the money that must be made that's used for this vehicle. You see it a lot on the streets. Which one is that? That's right. That is the most expensive vehicle to operate in 2025. I don't think it's going to get any better in 2026. Okay, a couple more here. We all know people that are having weddings. We get wedding invitations. We have to plan for it, get the perfect gift. I got in a little bit of trouble one time for saying this. I learned my lesson, but here was the response that I gave. I responded to a wedding invitation with, maybe next time. And now everyone's suddenly upset. And so much for being truthful, right? Sad but true. How about this one? For years, I thought the dryer was to blame for my clothes getting tighter. But it turns out the real culprit was the refrigerator all along. We put our little snackies in there, don't we like that? And for those of you that are cat lovers, that's right, and I like all animals, realize something if you're a cat owner. In ancient Egypt, cats were considered gods. Cats have not forgotten this. So if they don't respond when you call them, when they just ignore you, they know what's going on here. Okay, also you can find me on social media under AJ Karabin on YouTube. Also, as I mentioned last Sunday, I'm on another platform I didn't expect to be on called YouTube Music. It's not because you get to hear my singing voice, which you don't want. I won't even for tryouts for the Sunrise Singers because I know my answer. But this has to do with podcasts and teachings that algorithms, they translated my 31-part teaching on the book of Revelation into a podcast because we have parents that are constantly soccer mom and dads driving through the city streets. We have people traveling on vacation, people traveling from state to state. We have our truckers that we depend and need. They can listen to these series. Of course, encourage the videos so you can see, like in Revelation, some of the judgments and what they will look like, or we pretend to know what they look like. Unless you're there, you really don't know. Good news is we're not going to be there. So those are some of the topics that are there for podcast availability. Videos I have for you to look at if there's areas of interest. Don't forget heaven and hell. We all should be interested in that. Has to do with smoking versus non-smoking, where your eternal destiny lies. But wait, there's more. There's other topics that are there for you to peruse. And we are going to go ahead and continue in the book of Daniel. I'm also on Rumble under AJ Croft, and that's another platform, whatever one you like to utilize, to get more teaching and understanding. I don't know about you, but I watch daily people much more studied in the Word than I am, and I learn a little more each day, a little nugget here and there. Let's keep our minds sharp. All right. Now, I do have this opening trailer for you to watch. So Daniel, like Revelation and other books, are very prophetic. They talk about the future, what is coming down the pike, what is coming the way for the church, the bride of Christ, the Christians. What do we have to discern? Are we aware of the times we live in? Do we know what's going on? You talk to some people and you can clearly see they're not watching. They're clearly checked out. Or they just show up to church because it's a social activity. They check their little box. Yep, I'm good. I went to church. I'm good till next Sunday. Can you have a conversation with them? Can you ask them questions about the Bible? Can you learn and share the joy you have, why you believe in the Savior you do? Do you think about Him when you wake up in the morning? Do you read the Bible at least once a day? Where are you with your walk and in your faith? So we're going to go ahead and start with the scripture for the day. If you would like to rise and open up your Bibles, we're going to go to the book of Daniel. I believe that's still in the Old Testament, last time I looked. We're going to go to Daniel 7. We have confirmation it's in the Old Testament here. So we're going to start with Daniel chapter 7. We're going to cover verses 2 through 7 as a body of believers. I'm listening to the pages, Russell, people looking at their phones. But what if you don't have a Bible or a phone? Got you covered, folks. Just look at the screen. We got verses to go one by one. We're going to start with verse 2. We're going to talk about this. I will only get through a portion of chapter 7 today. I know where I want to leave off, and we're going to continue the study in this chapter. But let's go and start with verse 2. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven break forth upon a great sea. So was it a windy night and he was near the ocean? We're going to talk about some of those words that we see repeatedly through this chapter and other books in the Bible. And there were what? 4 great beasts that came up from the sea. Are these sharks and whales? What are we talking about from the sea? Beasts. They were diverse from one another. The first was like a lion. See, I wasn't lying about talking about the lion. We're going to talk more about lions today as one of the beasts, one of the first beasts. And it had eagle's wings. Okay, I told you guys last week, my animal in the millennium is going to be a lion. He got upgraded to having wings. So this is going to be a flying lion. Kind of like in a TV series, cartoon we grew up watching. What? Could it be some of you are not familiar with the story of Daniel? We'll pull up an ice block and lend an ear. Some of you are going to get a reference to that because we see a winged lion. So, and what was my lion's name going to be? Anybody remember? Aslan, thank you. Aslan is my lion. So we have a lion talked about here with eagle's wings. I, Daniel, beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, they're gone, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand upon 2 feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So this animal went through a transformation. Why? What does it represent? Verse 5, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. I'm thinking Russia, is that correct? It's a bear. What does this represent? And it was raised up on one side. Well, apparently it's important to mention it was raised on one side. Why is it in there? What does it mean? And 3 ribs were in its mouth, between its teeth. Was it just finished eating something? And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. After this I behold, and lo, to another, like a leopard, another animal, which had upon its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast had also 4 heads. Wow, what does that thing look like? You're going to see. And dominion was given to it. And last verse, after this I saw in the night visions, his dream, and beheld a 4th beast. This is different, folks, separate than all the others. It's by far the worst, the most powerful, the most destructive. Terrible and powerful it is, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. Oh, we'll talk about those teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped it had attitude, it sounds like, and stamped the residue with its feet. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns on top of it. You may be seated. So like I said earlier, you got somebody coming up to you new in the faith. This is the Bible. We're studying the Bible here, and they talk about these beasts that we haven't seen. I haven't met any of these personally. They sound mythical, but yet they're in the Bible. Are they real? Are they symbolic? What do they represent? Why are they in there? And is this something we're comfortable talking to another Christian about? What is this all about in this chapter? Let's move forward. Realize I did have a very wise man I met one time tell me that when you're talking about prophecy and you're talking about the future, first thing you need to do is you look down. I'm like, okay, I'm with you. What am I looking down at? I was told my Bible, looking down. Gotcha. What do I do now? Look at the pages of the Bible. What does the Bible tell us? What does the Bible say? And then when you understand and read those passages, then and only then you lift up your head. Remember Nebuchadnezzar acted like a beast, an animal in a previous chapter, eating the grass. His nails were like claws. He acted as an animal, wasn't an animal, but behaved like one. His mind was checked out for a period of 7 years. That is the time God gave him to fully come around, to lift his eyes from off the ground unto the God because of his pride. And so we're to understand the Bible first, look down, read our Bible, look up and see the world around us. What is happening? Am I attuned? Am I catching on to things? What's happening? Am I discerning the times? And too many prophecy speakers, they look at the times today. They look at the events, the news headlines, and they change from day to day. And then they're like, oh yeah, there's this headline I saw in the news on that stupid channel I shouldn't be watching. And, we can fit that there in the Bible. Oh, that happened too. Oh, that goes right there in the Bible. And we reach and we grab things and we try to fit them in the Bible. And that is not good Bible prophecy teaching. I don't encourage that. And unfortunately, because the Christian audience is not a discerning audience, biblically illiterate, I will stand and say, step on some toes here. We don't study our Bible. We don't spend enough time in God's Word. We easily get misled. And we have an audience of Christians out there that love to watch videos, and I will call them clickbait videos. Do you know what I mean when I say clickbait? The title will capture our attention. There is something that's coming that you have got to see, something that was revealed, a hidden truth that was uncovered, and they do it for views. And why do they do it? Because it works. Why do they do it? Those channels are monetized. And why are they so successful? Why are they so wealthy from these monetized channels? Because Christians give up their money to watch. Because they only want to hear about giants and Nephilim and demons and UFOs. So instead of just titling this message, Daniel, whatever part I'm on, what if I renamed today's message and I said, this would be my title: Recently Uncovered Secrets Not Known Before in the Book of Daniel. Do you think I'd get some more views? Oh yeah, lots. Or how about I name today's message, Unexamined Verses in Daniel which point to the day of the rapture? Do you realize how many Christians would click on that? More than I would like to think. Because you know when the day of the rapture is, it's September 23. That's been a viral thing going on because of Rosh Hashanah. But yet, doesn't the Bible say we don't know the day nor the hour? It'll come as a thief in the night. Well, I had a dream. God spoke to me. I was told this to tell you. And unfortunately, it's sad that I see so many views and false teachers getting rich off the Christians' lack of Bible understanding, their ignorance. So here's a passage to start with. A person of many that I follow for discernment, realize one must not interpret biblical prophecy by current events, but interpret current events by biblical prophecy instead. There is one additional principle to keep in mind. Bible prophecy is never fulfilled approximately. It is always fulfilled precisely and as it is written. Much of what is presented as fulfillment in sensationalized prophecy books is based on a single similarity. However, one similarity does not fulfill Bible prophecy. There is no fulfillment until there is total fulfillment. And yet I go to prophecy conferences, I see people buying books from people, and their teachings were already questionable, and they want to give the gifts away as to family members that need to be saved or somebody that needs to understand something better. And then I had a conversation with this one person, and she told me, I don't know why I bought that book. And that teacher, I had some questions, but I bought their book. I waited in line, gave them my money. But now that I think about it, AJ, I won't even give it as a gift because it's just so bad. I'm like, why did you buy the book? Exactly. Use discernment. Pray for it. The Lord will give it to you. So we're going to start in chapter 7. There are certain words I'm going to unpack as far as we're going to see them mentioned throughout this chapter and also through other books in the Bible. Don't take my word for it. Chapters and verses are given, but we need to understand what those words represent. So when you see the word winds, what do we think of? I think Nevada. We get them all the time out here. But it actually denotes war, strife, and judgments from God. We see that in Jeremiah, another major prophet, part of the Jedi force, Revelation, and Daniel. Okay? We also see the word seas. Represents nations. It represents people. We see that in Revelation. When you see the word beast, oh yeah, we're going to talk about beasts today. What does that represent? Kingdoms and rulers. We see that referenced in those prophecy books of Daniel, Revelation. When we see heads, the word heads, not literal head, we're talking kingdoms. Just like beast, that depending on the context, it can represent a beast or a head. Lastly, we're going to see the word horns. We're going to see them mentioned in beasts. What do they represent? Kings and rulers of kingdoms. All right? So that's a little side note there to keep in mind as you move forward in this chapter. Other notes and things to think about. This is the last of the chapters, as I mentioned earlier, that is written in Aramaic. Chronologically, just like in the book of Revelation, folks, this chapter actually preceded chapter 5. But we're in chapter 7. So think about it. Nebuchadnezzar was now dead for a period of 9 years, and Daniel now is only 67 years old. What? I mean, wouldn't you like to do that if you could go back in your age like Daniel? Because last time I talked about Daniel, he was in the lion's den. He was in his early 80s. Now he's 67 years old. What happened? He went back in time. Well, don't you wish we could do that too? He didn't go back in time. The book is not written chronologically as far as time-wise. Neither was the book of Revelation. Future chapters in either book will signify and enhance and talk about certain components that a previous chapter touched on. So realize that. Also, this chapter parallels chapter 2, which I'll probably begin the next time we visit the book of Daniel. I won't get to it today. A lot of parallels between chapter 2 and chapter 7. And it agrees that the 4 Gentile empires, one will succeed another, culminating with the destruction of the 4th empire. And who's the one that destroys that 4th empire? Jesus himself. Also, the interpreter of the vision in chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, who interpreted that dream? It was Daniel. In this chapter, Daniel had a dream, and who interpreted it? An angel. So Daniel's dream in chapter 7 was in 553 BC, and actually consists of 4 components, 4 separate dreams. Let's break those down. The first dream describes a great sea. See, we're not talking about the oceans here. And the first of 3 beasts. We're going to cover those beasts today. The second dream describes a 4th beast. It's separate and different, and it has a little horn. Got to know what that represents. The third dream deals with the Ancient of Days. Who is the Ancient of Days? That's right. Everybody's looking up. I like that. God. God is the Ancient of Days. And the 4th dream describes the second coming of Jesus himself. All right. So, starting in chapter 7, verse 1, here we have Daniel having a dream. I don't know why I'm thinking Santa Claus. Just a picture I had, folks. Kind of like you haven't heard the story of Daniel, pull up an ice block and lend an ear. Also in that storytelling animated cartoon we grew up watching, Rudolph, there was a lion with wings. I'm like, wow, kind of weird, huh? And I don't know why he needed help from Rudolph not that we believe in a pagan cartoon, but this lion asked Rudolph to tell Santa about the misfit toys. I'm like, that's me. I'm a misfit toy. I grew up identifying with that story. But anyway, Daniel here is sleeping, and he's having a dream. It's in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. Daniel's had a dream and visions upon his head, upon the bed. And then he wrote the dream and told the sum of what it entailed. So the dream was given to Daniel in 553 BC, and it had multiple components to it. And Daniel wrote about the visions of that dream right when he woke up, which is smart because you'll forget it if you don't jot it down. But this was on his mind. So remember how I told you in the last teaching when it came to the timeline or the family of King Nebuchadnezzar, who was related to who in that chapter 5, I believe it was. We have a slide here I want you to focus on, and I added things to it, and if you understand this slide, you're going to understand the rest of the chapter very easily. So let's break it down here. You're going to see on the slide, there's 4 beasts shown in front of you. And those beasts are mentioned separately through the verses, starting with the lion. Don't worry about the small print you can't see, because I got that covered. We're going to go through it animal by animal on this slide. So if there's any people who like to take pictures, or I'm a visual person, I like to see things to help me understand things. I hope by seeing pictures, it helps you understand things as well. But we're going to start with that first animal that's on the lower right corner, the lion that I wanted myself with wings. That's pretty cool, right? A lion with wings. This lion here is a representation for the kingdom of Babylon. It's the first beast that is mentioned in chapter 7. It has wings, but we are hearing later, and we'll talk about this, it's standing with wings. They were plucked and removed. Why? And it has the heart or mind of a man. What transformation process is occurring here? Why is this lion changing in front of our eyes? But that's the first one, the first beast in chapter 7. Next, we have a number 2 beast called the bear. And descriptions and particular emphasis is made that it's risen on one side. Is that a detail we need to know? Well, apparently, because it's in the Bible. Why? What does that represent? And it has 3 ribs in its mouth. Did it just kill something? What's left of that animal that he devoured? That represents actually the Medo-Persia Empire. We're going to talk about that. The third beast, this is a pretty cool looking beast, and you can tell they're actually getting to be more powerful. But this one had not one, not two, 4 heads of a leopard and 4 wings. I don't know about you, but if one of those came up upon you, a 4-headed leopard, that means 4 times as many teeth and wings. That means it's powerful and it can fly. It's fast. I haven't come across anything like that. I think if I did, I'd run and hide in the basement. That's a pretty powerful creature there. But after discussing these first 3, there's another beast, the last one that's mentioned, and we're going to spend more time on this beast because this beast affects us. It relates to current events and future events moving forward. This beast and this beast system that's being brought into place. What does this beast represent? What do we know about the beast? Other than it's by far the most powerful, the most destructive, separate and diverse from the other 3 beasts. It represents Rome. All roads lead to Rome. Wow. This beast was what? Was it friendly, helpful? No, it was dreadful. And it had particular kind of teeth. Why do I need to know about its teeth? Hopefully I don't get that close to it that I smell its breath, that I see its teeth. But not only does it have probably bad breath, but you know what? This has iron teeth, which signifies strength in its teeth. That means it conquers, it destroys, it pulverizes. It's efficient, it's a killing machine. So why is emphasis put on this beast? We will see moving forward. And the last thing I'll add to this slide, which will help you understand chapter 7, beast 4a is a horn that grows from 3 previous horns that are removed. What are the horns? What are those that were removed? What do they represent? And there's a complete picture, if you break that apart by beast and kingdoms, what Daniel chapter 7 is going to tell us moving forward. Here's another picture of the beast, similar in appearance, and they're coming out of the sea. Well, it's not a literal sea. Sea is a comparative analysis to coming out of the Gentile nations. Remember, we have in Revelation chapter 13 a beast coming out of the sea. That would be Mr. Antichrist. And we have another beast that comes on the land. That would be Mr. False Prophet. They're going to be roommates in the future lake of fire. So we have an illustration there. Verse 2, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven break forth upon the great sea. So winds from heaven had supernaturally agitated the sea being symbolic of a Gentile world. We see that in the following passages, Isaiah, Matthew, book of Revelation. Those are ones for you to understand. I don't just say scripture like Romans 3 and Genesis 5:6 and Matthew 24:2 and Zechariah 7:5 because you wouldn't remember it. It would talk too fast. I put it as a reference for you to unpack, go and research, see where these words are used, and do we have consistency and harmony? And we'll see that we do. Now, moving on to verse 3. More of the beasts here. We're on the beast. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. So we have 4 Gentile empires that are represented here, each being totally different from the one before. Moving along, verse 4. We're going to talk about the lion, which represented Babylon. The first was like a lion, and it had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth. If you look to that picture from left to right, you see it's now walking on 2 legs. And it was made to stand upon 2 feet as a man. And a man's heart was given to it. Why is a lion turning into a man? And why was its wings removed? And what are we to take from this? What's our takeaway? As nearly as a man could become a beast, Nebuchadnezzar became a beast, as I mentioned earlier. As nearly as the beast could become a man, Babylon lost its beast-like nature and Nebuchadnezzar's dream image from chapter 2. The first kingdom was symbolized by a head of gold. We see a transformation in that kingdom. In zoology, realize, what does the lion represent? It's the king of the beasts, and it is always used as a symbol for the nation of Babylon. Also in zoology, we have an eagle. What do we know about the eagle? Well, it's king of the birds, as lion is king of the animals. And it's another symbol for what? For Babylon. So we have two symbols, a lion and an eagle, and they represent that nation. Interesting. Jeremiah and Ezekiel speak about that. Verse 5, and behold another beast, a second, like to a bear. Okay, there's your bear. And it was raised up on one side. Why is that mentioned? And 3 ribs were in its mouth, between its teeth. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. This bear is given orders. What does the bear symbolize? It is the Medo-Persian Empire. And it conquered by sheer force members, but it moved more slowly in its military campaign due to its enormous size. The bear was representative. Now realize the text does not specifically specify whether the bear was sitting or standing or lying down like the lion, but it did appear lopsided. What's that about? Comparatively, the bear is parallel to Nebuchadnezzar's dream statue of a silver chest with 2 arms signifying the Medo-Persian Empire, and the Persians being stronger of the two, making this union unequal. One was above the other. They conquered, but they worked together, the Medo-Persians. So the bear is less majestic than the lion by far. It's more bulky than the lion. It's less graceful. It's also less agile. Moving along. The 3 ribs in a bear's mouth indicate what? It has dismembered some prey. It was told to devour much flesh. It conquers. The Medo-Persian Empire was granted more authority to conquer than any other nation before it or any other nation after it. It was swift. Alexander, as far as the armies he had, the generals that worked underneath him, the vast territories they conquered, the speed they did that with, how successful he was in such a short period of time. And we'll see more of that as we progress into the book of Daniel. Also, the bear is commonly associated with lions and fierceness. And we can see in 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, Proverbs, and Hosea, Amos passages that talk about such things. Interesting. Now, we're on to the 3rd beast. Look at that thing. I would be pretty nervous coming up upon that. I'm like, what head do you start petting? I mean, do you get taken down by this thing, chomped on by its teeth? It's moving fast. It's going to get you. What is this all about? Verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to this animal. So this creature corresponds to the 3rd kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar's dream that was in chapter 2. The bronze belly and thighs, which do in fact represent the Greek Empire. The leopard is less majestic than the lion, less grand than the bear, yet it is faster than both, as the wings symbolize. So realize, folks, within 4 years, Alexander had conquered the entire Medo-Persian Empire, including Egypt, Syria, and Israel. Wow. Within 6 more years, he had subjected more than 11,000 miles of territory from Greece to the west to the borders of India to the east. That's a lot of territory Alexander had conquered. So the creature's 4 wings would make it twice as swift as the 2-winged lion, and yet faster than the bear. The 4 heads, here's where you get into some analysis and breakdown. What are the 4 heads about? Commonly, biblical scholars, and they're in agreement with this, with the better class that are out there, we try to do the best we do to understand what this represents. And it has generally been associated to Alexander's 4 generals. Try to pronounce those names: Lysimachus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. So those were his 4 generals. The beast symbolized what we know to be the largest kingdom coming thus far. Now we're going to talk separately about that one beast, the one that's at the very end, that's diverse and separate, the most dangerous predator that's there, the Tyrannosaurus of Rex. What did we know about this beast? Verse 7, after this I saw, this is Daniel in his night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, terrible and powerful, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. There's those teeth again. What do they represent? It signifies strength. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with its feet. It had attitude, it was successful, it was conquering, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So compared to the other beasts, this was by far the most ferocious. This beast corresponds to the iron legs and feet of Nebuchadnezzar's dream image, and it aligned with the fourth Gentile kingdom, the beginning of what? The Roman Empire. We're going to talk more about them by far. The teeth spoken of here would not just overpower the previous empires that came before it, it would crush every nation that it had conquered. And the 10 horns relate to the 10 toes of Nebuchadnezzar's dream image. I'm going to play for you a short video, and this will sum up what we've been talking about thus far in the book of Daniel, chapter 7. Watch this.
The Roman Empire, the last beast and the prophecy revealed in Daniel chapter 7 form a dark enigma that echoes through the centuries. On a night of heavy silence, amid the shadows of the Babylonian exile, Daniel, a faithful servant of the Most High, receives a vision that would forever change the understanding of human history. He sees the sea stirred by fierce winds, and from this sea emerge 4 great beasts, each different from the other. The scene is charged with mystery, as if the invisible forces of the world are about to reveal their darkest secrets. The first beast looked like a lion with eagle's wings. The second was like a bear. The third resembled a leopard with 4 wings. But the fourth was indescribable. Terrible, terrifying, and exceedingly strong. With iron teeth it devoured and tore to pieces everything it encountered, and trampled what was left under its feet. Daniel chapter 7 verse 7 records this moment clearly, showing the difference between this last beast and the others. The prophet is perplexed by the vision, for this fourth being could not be compared to any known creature. It was the revelation of something that would transcend human imagination, a power that would dominate the earth with uncontrollable fury. The mystery begins here, when we realize that the prophecies are not confined to the distant past, but extend into the future, connecting empires that would emerge on the stage of history. Each beast represented a kingdom that would arise, but the fourth beast, the terrible and inexplicable one, pointed to a much deeper reality. It symbolized an empire whose strength, reach, and cruelty would surpass all previous ones. Daniel, shocked by what he saw, sought to understand the message. This moment is crucial, for it shows us that God reveals the future even before it happens, establishing the certainty that nothing escapes his control. Isaiah chapter 46 verse 10 reminds us that the Lord declares the end from the beginning. From ancient times, the things that are not yet done, declaring that all his purpose will be accomplished. This vision was not merely a symbolic account, it was a warning, a preparation for understanding how humanity's course would unfold. In the Babylonian setting, Daniel was a man already marked by faithfulness. He had stood firm in the lion's den, faced unjust decrees, and resisted the idolatry imposed by the king. Now, in a night vision, the Lord showed him the line of kingdoms that would dominate the world until the end of time. The first 3 beasts represented Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, powerful empires that left their mark. But the fourth, the most intriguing, is the one that attracts attention and generates fear. For it carries within it the spirit of destruction and arrogance that would directly oppose the kingdom of God. The scene described by Daniel is not only meant to fill with awe, but also to bring insight. This fourth beast has no parallel. It cannot be tamed or explained by natural comparisons. Its monstrous image serves to demonstrate the bestial nature of human kingdoms when they stray from the Creator. The ferocity, violence, and arrogance of empires that rise up against God are portrayed in the form of this beast. Thus, the vision reveals that human history is marked by successive powers, but that all share the same fate, their downfall before divine judgment. The most striking thing is to realize that the focus is not just on the description of the kingdoms, but on preparation for something even greater. Daniel chapter 7 verse 15 relates that the prophet himself was troubled in spirit, distressed by the visions that assailed him in the night. This shows us that the message was not simple, but loaded with profound implications. He sought to understand, and one of the celestial beings approached to interpret, revealing that those animals symbolized 4 kingdoms that would arise from the earth. However, the kingdom will be given to the saints of the Most High and will endure forever. The 4th beast with iron teeth and bronze claws represents the Roman Empire, which would crush everything around it with military might and political authority. This empire would not be content with ruling, but would seek to control the minds and souls of the people under its rule. It was more than force. It was an attempt to establish a world order that would oppose God's plan. This is the key to understanding why this vision is so relevant for the last days, for Rome not only dominated the ancient world, but laid the foundation for a system that still resonates today. The images are powerful, and their interpretation opens the way for us to see beyond the surface. The vision shows that human kingdoms, however powerful they may seem, are but wild beasts before the Lord of hosts. They devour, they conquer, but their glory is fleeting. What stands as indestructible is dust before God. And the 4th beast, the Roman Empire, marks the transition between human rule and the final stage of history. The tension mounts, as the chapter doesn't simply introduce the empire, but sets the stage for something even more enigmatic: the horns that emerge from this animal and the small horn that rises between them. Daniel's gaze fixates on this detail, and his search for understanding intensifies. The mystery has not yet been fully unraveled, and the weight of the revelation points to a plot that unfolds far beyond what he could have imagined. When Daniel beheld the 4th beast, unlike all the others, terrifying, devouring, and unparalleled in power, the revelation transcended time. He was not merely faced with enigmatic symbols, but with a historical reality that would be fulfilled with divine precision: the Roman Empire.
How would you like to have a dream like Daniel did? Would you want to go back and finish that dream? Would you be writing it down? Would you understand it? No, you wouldn't. And you know what? You're in good company. Daniel didn't understand it either. How did he learn to understand it? The angel told him. I'm glad when I go to the zoo, some of those animals that don't look like these, they're locked up behind bars. I feel safe. Unless you hear about those people with selfies, they got to lean over to get that perfect shot and end up falling into the pit where the gorilla or the lion is, or those wise Yellowstone tourists that have to get next to the bison. Well, these animals represent kingdoms. And why are we learning this? Why is it important to us? Where are we at with Rome? How's Rome doing these days, folks? Quite well, thank you very much. What can we expect in our future? The next few slides before I end this message, I'm going to go quickly, but it's going to explain what's coming our way and where we are today. Realize that there are essentially 5 stages to the 4th beast, which typifies Rome. That's mentioned here in Daniel chapter 7. We're going to go through those 5 stages step by step. The first is the united stage. It begins with Rome. All roads lead to Rome. The first stage was the united stage, the Roman Empire. This is the first stage of the Gentile empire of imperialism. Imperialism began with Rome, but it certainly has not ended there. It moves on forward till today. We're going to see that play out as we move forward. Now realize imperialism is just a successful way where a conquering army takes advantage of those that were conquered and lets them rule themselves with their leaders, but the conquering nation rules over the leaders. So imperialism is a successful way of conquering and managing those that are now oppressed and are under a new regime. We're going to see that coming in the world. So it lasted from 63 BC to AD 364 here. Neither of the Daniel passages, chapter 2 or 7, allows for gaps for a revival of the old Roman Empire in those chapters. We move on next to a two-division stage. What is that about? This stage was foreseen by Daniel in chapter 2, but not by Daniel in chapter 7 that we are currently studying. It began when? AD 364, when Emperor Valentinian divided the Roman Empire into an eastern and western division. From that point on, the empire of imperialism was divided into an eastern and western balance of power. Since then, history developed into an eastern-western balance of power. Realize the eastern leg is where we currently have developed our Orthodox churches. It began in AD 364 with the Western Roman Empire headquartered in Rome and the Eastern Roman Empire in Constantinople. So where are we at right now, folks? We are in the two-division stage where there is an Eastern and Western balance of power. The Eastern division, specifically, of power remained in Constantinople until 1453, when it collapsed due to a Turkish invasion. When Constantinople fell, the political rulers, scribes, and scholars fled northward into Russia and infiltrated the government there, setting up a Roman type of government. Here we have imperialism. The rulers called themselves czars, which is Russian for Caesar. We get Caesar salad, hail Caesar, right? Later, Russia gave herself the official title of the Third Roman Empire. Interesting. In time, the Eastern balance of power was based in the Soviet Union, which included the communistic bloc of nations that were attached to it. Now, we have the Western division. Where does that lead to? All roads lead to Rome. It remained in Rome from 364 to 476, when Rome eventually collapsed. Charlemagne in AD 800 called his domain the Holy Roman Empire of the Frankish nation. In 962, Otto I of Germany defeated the Franks and set up the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. The leaders named themselves Kaiser. Well, we have Kaiser Insurance, Kaiser Rolls, all have German connections, which is German for what? Back to Caesar. So we have Caesar, Tsar, or Kaiser, depending where we are geographically. After World War I, the Western balance of power had been centered in the democratic nations of the West. So this is where we are currently, folks, in a divided Eastern and Western leg of power. What comes next? What's coming our way? What do these animals represent? Follow along here. Number 3, we have a one world governmental stage coming our way, coming close to a location near you. Do we see anybody in our current government, somewhere, let's say Washington, that has ideas to bring Canada into the United States, bring Mexico into the United States? One region, one of 10 that will exist, that everybody will play a part. We'll have 10 kings without kingdoms. These will be 10 rulers, men of power and significance. Let's break this down. In time, the east-west balance of power will break down. So we know those two legs that were divided, they're not going to stand. They're going to break down. They're going to fall apart. And what happens because of that? We create a one world government. Wow, that's in the Bible. Prophetic, count on it. You have the Bible's word. It's going to happen. We can't stop it. This stage is seen by Daniel 7, but not by Daniel in chapter 2. Daniel 7, verse 23, we're going to get there, clearly states that at some point, the Fourth Empire devours a small portion. No, it devours the entire earth. Rome had never done this, and it had never conquered the then known world. Rome did not even extend as far as east as the empire of Alexander the Great. The Greeks went as far as the Indus River in India, and Alexander would have gone further had his 4 generals worked better together. They didn't all play well in the sandbox, even though they were successful, Alexander with his 4 generals. Rome never fully conquered the Parthian Empire, nor Scotland. Rome had to build the Hadrian. Have you heard the name Hadrian? Yeah, he was the king. He was essential in creating the state of Palestine, where it's a false teaching, a false nation, doesn't exist, not biblical, not based on any kind of logic. Hadrian Wall, in order to keep the nomads of northern Scotland from overtaking part of Britain that was then controlled by Rome. In Daniel chapter 2, verse 39, the word is used of the Greek Empire and stated that such authority was given to it as it was to the Babylonians. Daniel 2, verses 37, 38. Neither of these two powers use this authority, though. That's important. The fourth empire of imperialism, which Rome began, has yet to conquer the whole world as a one world government. We're not there yet. It's going to happen. Rome is only the first stage of the empire of imperialism. This third stage of the one world government will happen when the two-division Eastern and Western balance of power collapses. Count on it. It's going to happen. It would be incorrect to assert that the Fourth Empire was entirely Rome's conquest, but rather it should be viewed as the beginning stages of imperialism, which then move forward. Fourth, we have a 10-division stage. We're going to see this even occurring into the first half of the tribulation. Both Daniel 2, with the 10 toes reference, and in Daniel 7, when we get to the 10 horns, it sets the stage for the coming one world government. The 10-division stage is clearly stated as coming to our one world government. For some reason not given by the text, the one world government will divide into what? 10 kingdoms that will cover the entire world, not just merely Europe. The text does not support a 10-world kingdom as remaining just in Europe alone. At the very best, the European Union, we have the United Nations, all that we're seeing, they're going to fall. They're not going to become one of the 10. They could become one of the 10, but it could hardly include all of the 10. So it's going way beyond Europe as 10 distinct areas covered as 10 kingdoms. A careful reading of the Daniel passage states that once the Fourth Empire, what does it do? Rules the whole world. Then this one world government splits into what? 10 separate distinct kingdoms. This requires the 10 kingdoms to cover the entire world. Luckily, we're not going to be here for that. That's going to be in the tribulation timeline. We're raptured prior to that. More consistent with Daniel's prophecy is the recommendation of the Club of Rome that the world would be divided into 10 administrative districts to avoid what? We don't want economic collapse. So they're all diverse. They're working together in unison. 10 kingdoms, 10 rulers. Lastly, 5, we have the Antichrist stage. During the 10 kingdom stage, the Antichrist will begin his rise to power, the man with the plan, Mr. Fix-It, promising peace and prosperity. In time, he will be strong enough, and what's he going to do? He's going to uproot 3 of the 10 kings, meaning 3 of those 10 kings don't like Mr. AC for what he's doing. They're going to defy him. They're going to go against him. They're going to rebel. But guess what? They lose, he wins. The other 7 will simply submit to his authority. So Antichrist, in essence, becomes the 8th. Once the other 7 submit their authority to the Antichrist, this will begin the 5th and final stage of the 4th Gentile empire. Thank you, Rome. The Antichrist stage. The stage of absolute imperialism. In this sense, he is diverse from the other 10. So how about that? Wow. We're going to leave off here. And when I pick up next in chapter 7, we're going to talk about the parallels between chapters 2 and chapter 7 of Daniel, and they're remarking, they're striking. You can see where this book parallels, coincides very nicely with the book of Revelation. It's prophecy. Be glad you have a church that teaches it, that I'm allowed to teach it, because a lot of pastors, not interested, don't want to do it. It's not my cup of tea. I wasn't taught it in seminary. I don't know. The church is too divided on it. I don't want to talk about a rapture. I don't want to talk about timing of the rapture. The rapture is coming in a few weeks. If you listen to some websites that monetize their website, that Christians love to watch and give up their time. And I see so many good teachers out there that they just don't get the attention they deserve, being studied men of God's words. Because Christians don't want to, I'm too busy. I don't have time to read my Bible. I have a very social, busy, active life. I have a family to take care of. I got places to go, things to do, people to see. So I'll just squeeze in, this must be a good teacher. He has a lot of followers. I'm up to speed on my Bible. I know what's going on. No, you don't. You're in the darkness, and you're fooling yourself if you think you are. Discern the teachers you follow. Read the Bible for yourself. Never take anybody else's word for it. And if you find people teaching differently on the same part of the Bible, decide which one of those two you don't need to follow, because they both can't be right, right? All right. We're going to go ahead and close in prayer as we finish this message. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to share your word, to equip the saints, to let them know the times that you've revealed to us to be aware of, the stages, the kingdoms that came and fell, the kingdoms that are yet coming, where we are in the timeline, where we have to think about the future, how we want to save our families and friends, our relations, even strangers we meet. We want them to be spared the tribulation timeline. We don't want them to be devoured by the fourth beast that's hideous. We know it's destructive. And we know Antichrist is coming on the stage after a one world empire. He will control and dominate the world, the second half of the tribulation. He will kill and persecute 2 out of 3 Jewish people. And the Jews finally come to saving faith at that point when they call upon the Messiah, ushering his return. We thank you for the church, for the teachings that we have that are available to us. May we always stay centered in your word. And may we always be cognizant and thankful for what Jesus did for each and every one of us. Because of him, we have eternal salvation and a plan moving forward through his efforts and his work on the cross, not by anything we did. We ask you all to remember the Father daily and remember what Jesus did for each of us.